Emily's hands trembled around the thin paper tissue as she sat hunched on the psychologist's vinyl couch, the hum of hallway laughter seeping through the door. At 9 years old, with her braids so tight it almost hurt, she had learned to hide in plain sight, until today. Across the carpeted floor, giggles echoed. Invitations were being handed out for the school's mother-daughter dance, and Emily knew, with the sinking certainty of an empty chair, that she would have no one to escort her. She looked up at the social worker, voice barely more than a ghost of a whisper. "If Elvis Presley could be my daddy, if only for one dance, then maybe I wouldn't feel like everyone's joke." They all smiled politely. They all moved on. But in the doorway, a teacher paused, once a tech at RCA in Memphis, his heart catching on that single, shattered plea. And in that moment, Emily's impossible wish became a promise that no one would see coming. Let us know where you're watching from, and we hope you enjoy the story. Mr. Rhodes found Emily Parker at precisely 10 minutes past the first bell. The art classroom was a sanctuary of muted colors. Dusty ochres and gentle blues splashed across well-worn canvases, the air thick with the scent of linseed oil. In the corner by the tall window sat a small girl, her lank brown braid coiled neatly over one shoulder, legs dangling from a chair too tall for her frame. She folded and unfolded her hands as though they might vanish if she let them stray too far. Emily was 9, an orphan in her foster family since she was 6, and the children around her regarded her with polite curiosity, or at least they had, until the whispered rumors began. No mother, no father, no dance partner for the upcoming school social. Now, the hush in her wake accompanied every step she took. When Mr. Rhodes, the art teacher, entered carrying a stack of charcoal pads, he paused. The hush felt heavy, expectant. He set the pads down and approached the child. "Emily, dear, are you all right?" His voice was gentle. He'd once been a studio technician at RCA in Memphis and knew the quiet desperation of a child feeling unseen. Emily lifted her eyes, rimmed red at the corners. She looked at him as though finding a safe harbor in a storm. She began, then bit her lip, glancing at the door. Her foster siblings laughed in the hallway as they passed the window, laughter sharp and excluding. Emily turned back to her hands, voice barely a whisper. "If Elvis Presley could be my daddy, just for one dance, I wouldn't be everyone's joke." Mr. Rhodes held himself still. The swirl of paint and laughter around them fell away, leaving only her trembling words. He remembered those days in Memphis, driving Elvis from one small show to the next, listening to the boy wonder if his father would ever notice the swelling crowd or the lonely child behind them. Here was a girl, bright-eyed and wounded, who believed a superstar's arm around her might mend a fracture no lesson plan could touch. He sank onto the edge of the table. "Emily," he said softly, "what you said, it matters." She blinked, confusion flickering as she searched his face. "Why are you telling me this?" she asked. He offered a kind smile. "Because every child deserves someone who cares. And I do care. I'm going to help you." The hope in her eyes shone too bright, and he looked away for a moment, thinking of the mountain of paperwork, of social workers' busy schedules. But he'd seen how silence can scar more deeply than boisterous teasing. That afternoon, he called in a favor from an old friend, a guitar technician who still did odd jobs at Graceland. The man picked up on the second ring, answering in a scratchy drawl. "Jerry," Mr. Rhodes said, "it's Paul. Listen, I need to reach Elvis Presley. It's important." He stammered over excuses, vague, professional platitudes, until Jerry pressed him. Finally, Paul sighed into the phone. A little girl in my class asked that Elvis be her father for an evening. It moved me. Could you pass her words along? Tell him someone needs to know. Jerry was silent a moment. Then he said, I'll do what I can, but don't promise anything. When Mr. Rhodes returned to the classroom the next morning, Emily was there before him, backpack at her feet, coil of braid unchanged, but eyes lighter as dawn. He handed her a corrugated envelope, the postmark Memphis, the handwriting neat and masculine, J. Esposito. She tore it open and unfolded a single typed line. Elvis Presley would like to know more about you. Please let your teacher advise. Beneath, scrawled in blue ink, was Joe Esposito. For a heartbeat, Emily's world tilted. She reread the words, lips moving without sound. The room seemed to hold its breath, the other students leaning back to let her fill the space. Then she collapsed into a sob, tears racing down her cheeks. Mr. Rhodes knelt beside her, offering a tissue. Well? He asked softly, heart pounding. Emily lifted her head, her eyes shining with relief and disbelief. He really wrote back. Her voice was raw wonder. As the other children scrambled to sip glue or poke at clay, Emily and Mr. Rhodes allowed themselves a moment of conspiratorial silence. Here was proof that a dream, no matter how outlandish, could ripple far beyond a lonely mind. And for Emily, it was the first time she understood that sometimes the true power of a voice is measured not in volume, but in the courage to speak. Outside the window, the campus moved on. Playground shouts, chirp of wind in the eucalyptus. But inside, Emily clutched that envelope as though it were a lifeline. Mr. Rhodes stood quietly, resolve firming in his chest. She would have her dance, and he would make sure of it. The kernel of a promise settled between them, bright and kind, lighting the path toward something neither great nor small, but deeply, irrevocably human. Elvis sank into the worn leather chair in Graceland's media room, the late afternoon sun filtering through slatted blinds and casting striped shadows across his open music folder. The scent of fresh coffee lingered from afternoon rehearsals. Guitar licks, drum beats, the orchestral swell of a new ballad barely begun, but none of it registered. In his hand, he held a thin envelope, the return address simple. Joe Esposito, Graceland. He'd barely glanced at it before slipping away from the studio floor. Alone. Now he unfolded the yellowed paper and read, each word a quiet thunderclap in the hush. Mr. Presley. I'm a little girl in Mr. Rhodes's art class. Next week is our school dance. I have no father to escort me. If you could be my daddy for just one dance, I would be the happiest girl in the world. Emily. His eyes lingered on her scrawled signature, the loops of her cursive unsteady, yet earnest. Heart tightening, he pressed the note to his chest for a moment, as though seeking to absorb her hope into himself. It reminded him sharply of his own childhood in Tupelo, listening to the distant roar of an audience he longed to please, wishing the man who'd once held his hand would stand beside him. That ache, dormant for years, surfaced in one instant, raw and insistent. He dialed Joe's number without hesitation. The phone crackled. Elvis's voice, low and steady, filled the cramped room. Joe, it's Elvis. Did you see this? On the other end, Joe's sigh carried relief. I did. That's real. She's in one of the private schools out in Beverly Hills. Mr. Rhodes sent it through. It's genuine. Elvis closed his eyes. Arrange for someone to scout the place. Quietly. No press. Once we know the details. He paused, clasping the note. I want to be there, but undercover. A simple escort, just for her. There was silence, then Joe's caution. "Boss, are you sure? Your schedule, Colonel's pushing for another Vegas date." Elvis cut him off gently. "Let it wait. It's one night. If this little girl thinks I can mend her world for a few minutes, I owe her that truth." He replaced the receiver, heart still pounding with the strange exhilaration of fulfilling a child's impossible wish. By midweek, Bob Lovell, one of the veteran guards who had long ago served in the military alongside Elvis's early entourage, arrived at Crestwood Academy under the guise of a security audit. He wore a sharp suit, inconspicuous but authoritative. In the gleam of the morning walkways, he caught sight of a group of students touring the grounds. His gaze settled on a small girl standing apart, braid over one shoulder, hands clenched at her sides as she watched classmates chatter. Bob recognized in her posture a familiar solitude. He remembered nights on guard duty, craving a kind word. With discreet courtesy, he approached the school's headmaster under the pretense of updating emergency protocols. All the while, he observed Emily, noting the flicker of hope in her eyes when he paused to adjust his imaginary radio earpiece. He returned to Graceland the same evening with a clear report. "She's real, boss, and she's waiting." That weekend, Elvis walked into Graceland's vast recording hall not as a superstar, but as a father on a mission. He exchanged the rhinestone-laden jumpsuit for a dark navy blazer and crisp trousers, his hair combed neatly back. In the mirror, he saw a man defined not by stage lights, but by empathy. He gathered his closest aides, Joe Esposito, Security Chief Jerry Schilling, and Joe's right-hand man, Sam Thompson, and outlined his plan in hushed tones. The room buzzed with tension. Jerry's brow furrowed. "Elvis, Vegas dates are set in stone. The press will swarm if you skip." Sam chimed in, clipboard in hand, rattling off logistical nightmares. "Underground cameras might catch you. Crowd control." Elvis raised a hand, silencing them. "You think those headlines mean more than a little girl's smile? This is bigger than publicity. It's about a single moment where she feels chosen." His calm conviction cut through the room like a spotlight. Joe nodded, meeting his gaze. "You got my word. We'll handle it quietly. No leaks." As Tuesday dawned, the team enacted their strategy. Unmarked cars, discreet uniforms, coded phone lines. Elvis slipped out before dawn in a black sedan, the morning fog curling around the columns of Graceland. He stared out at the waking world, anticipation thrumming in his veins. By the time he arrived at Crestwood Academy, the campus was bustling with parents and children in autumn finery. Stepping through the wrought-iron gates, Elvis embodied warmth disguised as reserve. No echo of "the King" followed him, only the eager hush of someone arriving incognito to keep a promise. As he convinced the front desk to allow a private escort to the assembly hall, his heart hammered not for an ovation, but for a small girl hidden among the sea of faces, waiting to feel that she mattered. And so, beneath the high ceilings of the wood-paneled gymnasium, where distances once measured in fame and fortune dissolved, Elvis Presley found his true stage. The dance floor, where a 9-year-old orphan named Emily would become, for a single night, a daughter chosen by a man who listened with his heart. The auditorium lights dimmed as dusk settled over Crestwood Academy's autumn dance. The polished wooden floor gleamed under soft amber bulbs strung overhead, casting warm halos that danced in the drift of apple-scented candle votives. A low hum of orchestral chords filled the hush, children and parents weaving silk and taffeta, tying bow ties and adjusting corsages in anticipation. But for Emily Parker, the evening's brightness only underscored her loneliness. She stood by the refreshment table, clutching her pale blue dress at the waist, eyes flicking to every pair of arms around her. but seeing only the absence of someone to ask her hand. Her foster sister, Margot, moved past with a giggle and a swirl of tulle, her date's arm looped through hers. Laughter tripped through the hall, punctuated by the scrape of chairs as others claimed seats around the perimeter. Emily's stomach clenched. A boy near the punch bowl sneered, "No daddy buy you flowers, huh?" His friends tittered. Emily's gaze fell to the floor. Her feet felt rooted in shame. Suddenly, the front doors creaked open. A hush rippled, a shifting of the tides, and in strode a tall man in an understated dark suit, shirt crisp, tie a slim black strip, his hair gleaming chestnut under the lights. No entourage, no flashing cameras. He carried only a single white lotus in one hand and removed his sunglasses with slow deliberation. The name flashed unspoken across every mind. Elvis Presley. Children froze mid-whisper. Teachers stilled mid-step. The live band faltered in a discordant chord. Even the walls seemed to lean in. Through the crowd's parted veil, Emily saw him move directly to the edge of the dance floor. He knelt, extending the lotus toward her. His voice, low, gentle, rippled in her chest. "May I have this dance?" Time fractured. A moment stretched as wide as heaven, and Emily straightened, brushing reluctant fingers across the flower's petals. Her eyes, bright as morning dew, met his. Then she placed the bloom in her hair, where it nestled above an errant strand of braid. The band, recovering, slipped into a slow waltz. The melody mingled cello's warmth with the shimmer of violins. Elvis rose and offered his hand. Emily placed hers in his, feeling the solid warmth beneath the cuff of his jacket. Together, they stepped onto the floor, turning once, twice, as the first notes unfurled like silk. Around them, conversation died. Parents lowered forks mid-bite. Children watched, mouths agape. The mortifications of hours before, scoffs, teases, the echo of Nurse Thompson's laughter, faded beneath the grandeur of this simple truth. A child chosen, her worth acknowledged at last. Elvis held her with the lightest touch, the way a father might cradle a fragile promise. He guided her in a gentle arc, his gaze focused solely on her. "You're my lucky girl," he murmured, voice soft as a breeze through tall pines. Emily's chest swelled. She dared a small smile that broke like dawn. Her steps, hesitant at first, found confidence in his lead. In the back of the room, a lone teacher with a bulky camera framed them through the lens. He clicked once, twice, capturing the quiet revolution taking place beneath the paper lanterns. But when Elvis's gaze flicked in his direction, no protest followed. Only a subtle nod from the king. And then, to Jerry Esposito's shock later that night, the negatives were destroyed. It was to be their secret, a private constellation made of two hearts in orbit. The waltz ended. A soft fog of applause rose and lingered, not the roaring ovation of a stadium, but the reverent hush of a congregation moved by grace. Emily, cheeks flushed with tears and triumph, pressed her forehead gently against Elvis's shoulder. He wrapped his arms around her, whispering more quiet words. "Never forget, Emily, how you shine." As she stepped away, the band struck up a livelier tune, and the dance floor reopened to swirling skirts and polished shoes. But for Emily, the last of her shy hesitations had fallen away like autumn leaves on an empty sidewalk. In that single evening, she learned something no classroom could teach: that recognition, offered without condition, has the power to transform a child's world. Elvis watched her retreat, small, brave, brilliant, before he disappeared back through the curtained doors. There were no fanfare or headlines to mark his departure, Only the lingering echo of a broken silence finally mended, and a little girl's laughter, clear as a bell, resonating through the hall long after the echoes of her name had faded. The morning sun filtered through the gauzy curtains of Graceland East, painting the breakfast room in soft apricot hues. Coffee steamed in porcelain cups, the scent mingling with the fresh blossoms on the table. But Elvis Presley's mind was already halfway to the neon lights of Las Vegas, daylight rehearsals, and press calls waiting. He stood, coat slung over one arm, eyes catching the glint of something on the sideboard. There, nestled in a small velvet box, lay the silver heart he had chosen for Emily. He had carved a single line across its polished face. "You're someone's everything. E.P." It was a token of a promise kept, of a little girl's hope kindled under the dim glow of autumn lanterns. He lifted it gently, fingers brushing the inscription, and gave a quiet nod. No fanfare would mark its leaving, no public declaration, just a private gift, delivered to a child who needed to know she was chosen. By mid-morning, the Florida skies stretched cobalt bright as Elvis climbed into his private jet. The heart lay tucked securely in his coat pocket, close to his chest, an anchor to a world beyond the stage. He flew off without a word to waiting reporters, no camera crew trailing, no sensational headlines teasing scandal. His priorities had shifted. The laughter of a girl, once small and uncertain, now rang louder in his heart than any arena roar. Decades passed. The world around Graceland and Crestwood Academy moved on. Teachers retired. School dances became memories recounted only in yellowing yearbooks. Elvis's own light dimmed all too soon in August 1977, leaving a legacy stamped into vinyl grooves and echoing through empty theaters. In the autumn of 1994, an alumni reunion drew past students back to their old campus. Among them was Emily Parker, no longer a shy 9-year-old, but a poised social worker in her early 30s, her braid replaced by soft waves of mahogany. She carried in her purse the same silver heart, its surface dulled by time, but still bearing the gentle EP engraving. Her fingers absently traced the inscription as she waited to speak at the podium. When the headmistress introduced her as one of our most distinguished former pupils, the audience applauded politely. But many leaned forward with polite skepticism. Stories of Elvis's midnight dance with a lonely orphan seemed too fanciful, woven from myth as much as memory. Emily's chest tightened as she took the stage. Beneath the polished oak of the lectern, she felt the weight of eyes and doubt. Yet, the cool metal of the heart in her hand reminded her of a night when she'd felt chosen for the first time. "I want to share something that happened nearly 25 years ago," she began, voice clear but soft. "I was an orphan in a small town near Memphis, and I believed I had no place in this world." A murmur rippled through the crowd, eyes widening as she lifted the pendant. "Then one evening, someone unexpected asked me to dance. He gave me this heart. He told me, 'You're someone's everything.'" Gasps fluttered. A few teachers shifted in their seats, recalling tales murmured in office corridors, but never confirmed. Emily held the pendant aloft, amber lights catching its silvery edges. "It was more than a dance," she said. "It was a message, a promise that a child's worth isn't measured by family or fortune, but by the love someone chooses to give." Silence deepened. Then, from a back row near the window, a hand rose. It belonged to Ms. Harrison, the former stage manager of Crestwood's auditorium, and now retired. She stepped forward, eyes glistening. "I was the one who watched from the wings that night," she confessed. "I thought I'd never stop crying, because I saw a man, a superstar, step into a school dance not for glory, but to heal a little girl's broken heart. She dabbed at her eyes. He whispered to me, "I just want one child to feel someone chooses her." And I understood then that fame without kindness is empty. The hall erupted, not into applause, but into a gentle standing ovation, one that felt less like celebration and more like gratitude. Emily felt tears roll down her cheeks as the crowd rose. Coaches and classmates, teachers and janitors, all honoring a moment that had lived quietly in their memories. When the noise subsided, Emily smiled through her tears and returned the pendant to her pocket. She met Miss Harrison's gaze, and together they shared a silent nod of understanding. No further words were needed. The power of attention, the simplicity of being chosen, had rippled through years and reached every corner of their hearts. As Emily stepped down from the stage and embraced the former nurse who'd once laughed so cruelly, she carried with her the quiet knowledge that one gesture of genuine kindness could light a lifetime. And in the hush that followed, the spirit of a king's love remained, a whisper that had traveled decades to teach them all the deepest truth of all. Everyone, even a lonely child in a crowded room, deserves to be heard and chosen.